So this is a meeting of the full council for a budget caucus. This is not a finance committee meeting, but it's actually the full caucus. And so my goals here, so I want to let people know that on Wednesday I expect Mr. Wheeler and probably Darius and Ken Bennett to be at the Finance Committee meeting to answer some questions we have. What I'd like to do in the time that we have allotted, about 50 minutes, is just to recap a little bit of where we are. I want to go over just the outline of the issues that I have identified that I want to make sure that the committee, the Finance Committee, is clear what it wants to be doing, what its responsibilities are, what the full council is looking at for us to be looking at as it moves forward, and talk a little bit about how do we move forward on this. So, if that sounds acceptable, I've provided everybody with an outline of some of the issues that have been discussed, and because I think that there was some confusion at our last Finance Committee meeting, I wanted to provide everybody, including those that are not committee members, a little bit of information about some of the issues that we have identified. And I just want to recap those. The first one is the debt service stated in the budget is $1.8 million less than what our obligations are. And we will be having a discussion with Mr. Wheeler following up on that. And also I've been essentially advised by the Office of State Controller we need to be stating all of our expenditures fully in our budget. And that is a problem with the way this is currently listed. I'm going to go rapidly through that and then see if people have questions about the issues that I've identified or want to add an issue to that, if that's okay with people. So that's item one. Item two, if the budget correctly stated the full debt service, then the whole budget would be up by $1.8 million. And so if you look at similar kind of accounting from year to year, the budget incorrectly states that it's only going up by the expenditures. The growth is only 1.25%, when by my calculations it's 2.18% with that. And then I'm not ready to write that in stone because I do have some questions about some other items in the budget. The budget summary numbers on page 8 do not add up. It's something I pointed out to folks. What the administration is asking us to do is to amend page 8, which is a very simple statement of, let me get this out. Whoops. Very simple statement, essentially, that is used to tabulate how much you need to charge, raise in the way of a tax levy. So previously they listed $58.55 million, and it really should have been $58.85 million, according to what they're now telling us. The total amount doesn't change in terms of the total budget here, but that amount that we're essentially being asked to amend the budget to increase the tax levy by $300,000 to correct their error. 58,850.
Did you get this, Mike?
Pardon?
Did you get this?
Yes.
Oh.
So,
okay.
And then on page 10, we have another issue with the numbers not adding up. And they've asked us to amend the budget to increase the amount of retirement by $10,000. And that would bring that previously the total there was off by $10,000. So by adding $10,000 to retirement, that does make the numbers on that page add up. However, because I always check numbers when we're being asked to make a change, make an amendment, I did go into the budget, and at the bottom of page 1 here, you have a list of the items that I found that are listed for retirement expenses in our budget that are part of our main budget. And it comes up to $500,000 more than the number that they want us to revise the number on page 10 to.
So, what should we do?
I'm not, this is another item that we need to talk to Mr. Wheeler and Mr.
So that's
Bennett.
not just a typo, which some of these things that they brought up were typos. We thought maybe we just take care of it. But now that we're doing amendments, we might have to do it a proper way.
Yeah, I asked the question several different ways over the course of a week and a half. How did they come up with this number when I came up with something different? And then I realized one of the things that was going on is I was not adding in one of the figures that needed to be added in the back of the book. But then when I figured out it was like $500,000, I'm like, so what codes? And it appears as though what they are doing is they are rolling up the savings, the challenge line in police, a negative $500,000, into retirement.
Say that one more time, Judy.
So their numbers really kind of do work out with mine if you take the challenge line from the police department, which is a negative $500,000, negative $500,000, and you add that to the number that I have, then you come up with the number that they want us to put in the book.
The 14,000.
Yeah, 14,158 as opposed to I came up with 14,658. I'm a little bit wondering why they couldn't give me a straight answer on this when I was asking the question, and I think that it doesn't make intrinsic sense that you would roll up. You know what you're anticipating for retirement, so why are you magically reducing that number by $500,000 when maybe having it come out of operations or salaries or something like that. I'm not. A lot of people are not a fan of the $500,000 challenge line in the police department. There's some question as to how they've been meeting that or whether they've been meeting that over the years, and they're always a little vague about how they're going to meet it. And unfortunately, I think they're going to meet it this year because their staffing is down, even though the Department of Budget is telling us that it's essentially a wash on that. So that's another one. Part of the reason why I'm laying this out for you guys this way is I'm hoping that this will be like a sheet when they come in, hopefully on Wednesday. I don't, by the way, have confirmation that they are coming in yet.
I have a question for you, Judy. Are you referencing an amendment that was made to these numbers here on, so for example, you said page 10, the numbers add up to 179,573. Where are you?
So all I can say is we were mailed all these wonderful attachments, and I think Michelle handed them out. And the way I deal with it is I've stapled.
You stapled it. Okay, so it was one of the attachments that they sent. Okay.
There. I did not get, I don't think I got a replacement page for this. Instead, we got some technical amendments. This is one of the problems, is we're getting stuff here and there with this budget that doesn't, it all should have been in the budget. We shouldn't be having these problems. So it's the reality what we're dealing with.
So can I just see that sheet you have? I want to make sure I have it. The one
So on page 8, they've changed this number to 38,850. When you look at transfer from fund balance, no, below that, amount to be raised in realty taxes.
This is 38. They changed it to 38?
No, it was 38. It's the 850. In the book, it was 550.
Okay, yep, so I got that. And then on page 10.
Yep, on page 10, they are simply asking us to change that number from 14,148. This is the retirement, second line down with the numbers. From 14,148, 313 to 14,158, 313.
Okay. And when you say here the numbers on page 10 add up, right here.
Okay.
These were,
So before that was changed by $10,000, this number added up to 179,573 instead of the number they had there.
hold up, before the numbers were changed, that column, the
2020,
okay.
the total budget amount was then 179,573, 548. When, I mean, if you just added those columns.
Okay.
So it was off by $10,000,
Okay.
which they did not pick up until I called it to their attention.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to note to you also when it comes to the debt reserve, page 11, the third from last line is also supposed to be 18,607 if you look at the back of the book, but again, that is, while they did this with the debt service, they made other mathematical errors. I don't want to get too fixated on this. It's either the debt service should be the full amount of the debt service, and we should be adjusting these numbers to reflect the full amount of the debt service, or then we figure out what maybe they should be adjusted to be, so what they've done then coincides. But one of the things that they did, this $1.8 million, is money being transferred out of debt reserve, and there is not one number, not one statement, not one anything in this entire budget book that says we're transferring $1.8 million out of debt reserve. And as the OSC reminded me, this is not just a bunch of numbers. This is their spending authorization, and anything that they are doing with money, this is authorizing them to do it. So if they are transferring money from debt reserve, this budget currently does not authorize them to do it. I didn't create the problem. So then turning to page 2, police staffing. This is something that has been in the budget for, I think, a couple years, where 7 recruit positions are identified in there. I'm not sure whether they've always been added in the total as FTEs, but there's no appropriation there. And I think, and essentially what Bridget told us is, if they wanted to hire those 7 positions, they'd have to come in for a budget amendment.
Sure don't ask them.
Because there's no appropriation.
Which doesn't make sense, because you would think that they would need money to pay for them. And they said, it was a very bizarre, they said they wanted it as a placeholder. And like a placeholder of people that work for free doesn't really seem like a valid placeholder.
It's not something I'm familiar with as a budgeting thing.
And I mean, I feel like getting volunteers is fantastic, but probably not.
Not a police officer.
Like we want those guys paid.
Did you raise that
Yeah.
issue with Mike?
They're also saying money is in here, okay, to give
Have I raised this
negotiated
issue with
raises,
Mike?
okay? So are they
I'm just
counting
wondering
on
if
that
it's
also for these
done.
FTEs, just, you know what I mean? If-
They couldn't answer well where the money would come from if they would use the 7 places, but it seems like
They never
something
have.
that you should
Oh, we
either,
can ask.
it's not one
It
position,
is
it's
something I
7.
expected
It's
us
a
to be
significant
asking
number.
about.
You should have a plan for them instead of just they're going to work for free.
I mean, if they did it already, and they're doing it now, and I'm convinced that they're not going to be filling all those positions, it's not really that much of an issue to me right now, but
Well, that's kind of what Bridget said. But on the other hand, I think it's a good question. I think
We
it's
did
a
it
good
once.
question to be asking about. Like,
I bet they've
what
been
is,
doing it that
what
way.
is the intent of doing that? You are increasing the total number of employees, FTEs, in your police department by doing that without having an appropriation associated with that.
you said we did that last year's budget also, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
That's
I
what
think
I'm
we've
saying.
done
I
it for
think,
a
you
couple
know,
of years.
That's my only point, is that we did it then, do it now, and we still aren't going to fill the position, so it's not that much of it. To me, it's almost a non-issue.
Because once it's out of the budget, people forget and it eliminates, that's all.
What?
To hold the line,
Oh,
so once it's out of the budget, then they'll have to be mindful to put it back in if it comes, if they fill it. So it's like a placeholder.
I think they can do that
That's all.
internally versus
They
any
should,
of this.
absolutely.
Like, I agree,
but
it's
it's just
important
easier
to do
for
those
them to
things
do
as a
that. So next year they
placeholder.
look in, oh, that's all it is. They should, but it's just a placeholder. It's general practice, unfortunately.
Their general practice, not.
so
be-
I have included in here as item number 7,
So they don't lose the position.
council concerns about inequitable raises and promotions and the impact on morale. I think that we, people have been talking to me about it and raising concerns on the council and outside of the council. And I do think it's probably a good thing to be asking how is it determined which employees get more than the 1%? What is the measurement? What is the criteria? I don't know if, how much other people want us to be. We can't impact salaries in the budget.
First of all, they're all non-union, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So if they're non-union, we should even be even more focused on it, because that means there's no union contract governing it. So we should be even more focused on, okay, so how is this being decided? Is it being decided by merit? What is this being decided on? Because that's one thing we hear constantly, and I'm pretty sure Councilman Johnson can speak to it as well. We constantly hear people are being moved up, people are jumping over people, getting paid more, and they don't know why. And especially if it's non-union, that is even more important, where people can be doing favors for people that they like, and not based off of, do they have the experience, have they been in the department just as long as the other person, do they have the same work title. So that's what we have to look at. And honestly, I wasn't comfortable with the commissioner's answers at the DGS meeting when we asked about the switch over for the supervisors and the foreman. He said they all do the same thing. And then he says, well, no, they do more, and so you're paying them all the same. And then I'm hearing from departments like, no, that's not true. Somebody's going to pay more. I'm like, well, it's in the budget, so I don't know how they're going to pay somebody more. And so...
And some of that's going to have to be worked out in negotiation.
Well, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's reasonable to ask for an explanation, for
especially when it's over a certain percentage.
I mean, in the past, examples we use, we have done it, say for where we start with the command staff and the police department. And their logic was, and reasoning was, to make people want to move up the steps and whatever. And we did it for the chief to keep that chief, whatever. And I guess the fire department's doing that. That is higher up.
And we have
in
received
DGS, yeah.
explanations in the past.
In DGS, we have some of them for the reorganization. Some of these are for reorganization, but they're hard to pick out and let people know why, and that's where we're at. I know.
And a couple of them are getting big raises 2 years in a row, like the fire chief.
So I think, for starters, on this particular topic, I put it there because, again, I think that this is something that we want to be raising with Mike on Wednesday. And I don't know if there's additional questions or information that people want. Somebody said, above a certain threshold. I kind of think that if everybody's getting a 1%, anytime you give somebody more than 1%,
There should be an explanation.
yeah.
And the vacancies are all in the lower salaries. They get 1%, 1%. And it seems like where we're given 8, 10, in some cases more, those positions have never been vacant for more than a day.
Unfortunately, for many years, I had to do evaluations on employees. And according to those evaluations, that's sort of how the people got the raises. It was up to management to dole them out, who did a good job, who didn't. If they even said that, then the employees would know, okay? I mean, that's what we got used to in some years, And I don't even know how well the evaluation is working in the city. At least from what I'm told, everybody gets an evaluation. I don't know if it's annually or what, but that was one step forward, So they should be able to answer somehow. I do think the employees should know, why the guy, and but then
So
what are you
I
going to
am-
show your evaluation?
Mindful of the time, and this is supposed to be a little bit of the overview. The next issue is the whole issue of the budget lacking a real capital plan that we struggle with in terms of these. It's more exactly what the consultant has said. It's more just a list of items that they want funded, as opposed to any real plan with timelines, etc. And I've, again, for everybody's convenience, provided some excerpts from our city charter, from the PFM report, and from the OSC that we had included in our budget intent memo. And I just feel like the administration isn't even bothering focusing on what we have said, even though I've called it to their attention repeatedly, to Mike and Nick Blaze about that. I do think that we should be asking some questions, Mike, some questions about that. Ken also is involved in the bonding ordinances and the cash flow issues on these kinds of projects. And so I am hoping that we can have some conversation with him also about that. And then we have a list of a few things that came up in public comment that we know are continuing issues. The soccer field improvements, the housing study, which I think should be able to be funded out of excess this year. And also we don't have a firm estimate on it, so it's hard to allocate funding for that until you do an RFP.
I thought one of the people in public comment said they thought it would be about $36,000.
Yeah, and the problem becomes if you allocate 36
It might
or
be
40
more.
or something like that, what happens if it comes in a little bit more?
Well,
So I think having
The number was based off of another city doing it that is smaller than our city. So
Right.
it's going to be more than 30.
although they were saying that
'Cause Hudson-
it's possible to get SUNY Albany to
Yeah,
assist.
that's right. Get some people to do it.
Now, we have some information that Mike has acquired and has been handed out regarding budget printing costs.
Yeah.
And So that is listed as an issue. I'm not sure, since it's not separately listed in the budget, I'm not sure it's a budget item so much as something that at least some people think we should be getting a handle on.
Well,
Since
the council pays the cost of 200 copies of the budget, so that's far more than the copies which we consume. They pay for 100 when it's the proposed budget and another 100 copies when it's the final budget. And with all the graphic art that's been put into it in more recent years, the cost has gone from $1,490 for 200 copies to $5,435. And that's, I'm looking at the numbers here. That's a big chunk just for graphic design, whereas the old budget, and I brought an old one. I know I did. Well, the old one is printed on plain paper without any pictures, and it's, in my opinion, easier to read.
As relates to graphics, what I would say is that a lot of my constituents appreciate those graphics.
Well, first of all, how many copies of the budget do we print?
What?
How many? He's
saying
talking about his public
200.
saying 200.
So I actually don't want to spend too much time on this at this particular point in time because I want to make sure we get through other issues.
But
so
should the council be using its funds to pay for all the printed copies of the city budget, even whether or not they increased from, whether or not they cost $4,000 more?
Well, if it's in our budget, we should have some say in how it's printed then.
One would
I
think.
could print 500 books I've done at symposiums for the state legislature. And bind them ourselves, just a little thing, and get it done in 2 hours. So
And the bigger issue is that there's no union bug on it, and if there's a law in the books that says anything printed by the city should have a union bug. And whether it was printed by Wren or not, I don't care. There's no union bug here.
what if the city prints their own?
They're supposed to have a union bug.
Not if they print it themselves. You could do it all. You could do
I'd
it
have to
all
look
from
at
shit.
Richard, so
I think the overall concern is, I was surprised that we were even paying for this. So the fact that the administration is using.
Again, I don't want to belabor that point. We should move on, I think.
Well, yeah, it's a small amount, but I think it's a legitimate question.
I want to remind people the goal is to do an overview and see if anything's left out, not to resolve every single one of these issues at this particular point in time. I do want to let people know that there's some other salary adjustments pending, one in the auditors, one in administrative services, which is reducing the salary of one person and increasing the salary of another. I've been made aware of at least one or two other positions that will be coming forward. What we normally do for salary adjustments, since we don't have the ability to modify that in the budget, is after there is action on the budget, then we move that, the adjustments through E&A, through a regular E&A resolution, as we have often done. Generally, we are looking for them to be cost neutral whenever possible. That is my guidance to them when they're doing post-budget kinds of modifications. Cost neutral in a particular department. If you want to have a different salary increase, then let's find the money within that, as Danielle has done for a position herself. I have also been advised, and this is just to let you know the lay of the land, I have been advised that Human Resources, there might be some reorganization going there while there's a vacancy in that position. And Celia Gonzalez and I will be talking a little bit on Thursday regarding what she's specifically looking at and whether that comes on the heels of the budget or in January or February. I'm not quite sure, but just keeping people informed of what's going on.
I just think what they do, we do. Okay, if we're going to give them theirs beforehand, which they're asking, then we're looking for something here, say for Michelle, then let's take care of that then. That's not, It
So
kinda guarantees us going to E&A
last
and-
year, what the council did with regard to Michelle was look to do, make a decision following annual evaluation at her annual time. And so because it can be, because it is it can be an E&A item, I don't want, I'm glad to put it in the budget if we're really going to pass a lot of amendments to the budget. But I don't feel we need to necessarily rush that particular discussion here. And I have put that on the agenda so that we don't lose sight of the fact that other people are getting 1% or more, and perhaps we should be having that kind of discussion. I've then provided you with a page and a half of excerpts from notices that I have sent, emails I have sent. I've deleted the items that we have received information regarding, or I've made a notation where we've gotten a partial response, etc. A big issue, so in addition to the budget, and I'm looking for guidance for how you guys want the Finance Committee to proceed, in addition to having Mike and Ken come in and ask them questions. But then there is also the issue of the bond ordinances. And I thought Mike was going to come back to us and say, just do the amount that is the city share, which would be the reasonable thing to do. But now he's back without any real clear explanation telling us we need to. They're looking for the full amount, which would be $26 million worth of bonds that they're asking us to pass this year. For us to stay under the debt ceiling, debt limit, we would need to probably stay under about $17 million in bonds. And I think that there's a lot of good bonds there that we could very easily act on, but for the fact they're now looking for the total amount as opposed to just the city share. So I think there's maybe 5 that really require a lot more discussion if all we're looking to do is bond the city share on that.
Don't do the bonding
And
houses
finally, I
take that
want to
into
note.
account?
Finally, I want to know. What, I'm sorry.
The bonding houses take that into consideration. They know that you're going to be reimbursed for that, even though even the controller.
Well, we have a little bit of a problem in-house with what has been happening with more money being borrowed than is really needed. And then sometimes delays in getting things paid off. And we have recently been advised of one bond ordinance over $1 million that was supposed to be used for trash carts that they are now going to use for other things. And that kind of alarms me. That they don't feel the need to come back and say, oh, now we're going to be purchasing lawnmowers for the golf course, which is one of the things that I believe is now on their schedule of purchases.
Again, would it be helpful to know if this was a regular practice, that other municipalities do the same thing? They'll bond for the entire amount with the idea that they are going to be reimbursed, or do they go?
Yes, that would be helpful to know. Anybody want to research that one for us? What
was that question again?
The question is it a normal practice for all municipalities to bond entire amounts before they are, even though they're going to be reimbursed? So we have one, for example, that's Tivoli Lakes. It's $1 million that we're expected to get reimbursed, and we're being asked to authorize $1 million in bonding for that.
I could take a crack at it. What other municipalities are you thinking of? Just like around here, or just in general?
Like Utica, Syracuse, something.
Okay, with similar demographic.
Yeah, and
I would go to a political friendly city, not
Yeah.
I think like an association could tell you pretty easily. I think
NICOM could probably tell us. See, my understanding is that most municipalities have things like a capital fund. So you actually have money sitting in an account that then can be allocated for projects in the interim, and you can recycle that money, so you're not having to borrow every single item. And that's not necessarily every municipality, but I know that some municipalities do that.
So many municipalities are distressed or susceptible or everything now, and you're looking for money from the state. How can you build up capital funds saying for this? Then they're going to say, can't you use this now and see whatever, and raise your taxes again? So that, I'm sure that's a factor in a whole lot of this stuff.
Would the auditor be able to help us with that research?
Yes.
All right, so folks.
No, I'll take it.
Folks, what else should the Finance Committee be looking at, and what kind of guidance do you want to give us, the Finance Committee, with regard to moving forward with this budget and some of the issues in it? Mr. Johnson.
I got a question. Is this just about DGS, or is it about, because when we had Parks and Rec here the other day, they said that they were putting money into Franklin Street Park. And I'm just trying to figure out what is Franklin Street Park. And on that diagram, on the map, it said Franklin Street Park. But the only thing on Franklin...
So you don't know where Franklin Street Park is?
Franklin Street, I know where Franklin Street, but it's, for the past 10 or 15 years, basically the city has been saying that school district property.
Yeah.
So there's just a little confusion as to how did, it's not like we're turning it down, but I just want to be clear if that's going to be Franklin Street back at Gifford.
So that's where Franklin Street Park is.
Yeah.
So did they have an answer? I apologize, I missed that particular
No,
one.
when I was looking over, I heard them say Franklin Street Park, and I just said, let me go downstairs, go down and look behind school just to be certain before I ask the question about it. And so then I looked on the map, and it's in that vicinity, so I'm assuming that they're talking about Gifford. And it's a little, it's a little confusing because at one time they're saying the school district property that they don't deal with it, but yet it just popped up that it's 60,000. And like I said, they're not saying we don't want it, but we're a little confused on that.
I know at least from when I was on the school board, on the facilities committee, we talked about that because that was, remember there was a fire back there?
I remember it was, you mean
there was damage to the playground, and the school district was unable to replace it because it was city property, and it was a big drama. So the school district is not, at least at that point, and that would be a pretty easy thing for me to find out if the school district recognizes it as their property. I can't imagine that they mow it, but they might mow. I know that it gets weird with because the school district mows Beverwick.
Well, the school district mows the whole park, but if I'm not mistaken, I think they replaced that.
They might have, so after I was on board, they did a whole thing. So I can find out about that from the school district.
Yes, please.
Jenny, up at Eagle Point, there are like 2 playgrounds.
Yep.
The city one's on this side of the street, and the school one's there.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's like a joint venture, but it was agreed, I think, when they updated one a year after the other.
The same thing with
It could be the
Ash.
same
There's
thing.
a piece behind Ash, that the city, it's city
And
park.
up there, I think 2 separate maintenance, school for some and whatever, which is kind of a waste because they're there. They could have done that in 10 minutes,
Joe, at Eagle Point, the school, we got that equipment donated because I was involved.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is one's on one side, okay, behind the school, and across the street.
That's Llewellyn Park.
Yes, Llewellyn Park, that's the
Had
city.
improvements made by the city. So I put soccer nets in. I got a grant from Frank Camisso Sr., and that's how we have the soccer there.
I don't see that.
But that's what a lot of the confusion came in at, because at Eagle Point, it still got taken care of by the city, and the schools in the lower part of the city that were connected to schools, they pushed it on the school district. And I believe it happened when Montessori was at the swing space, and they put the playground across the street from Cathedral, and someone got hurt, and they ended up suing the city and the school district, and so that's where
that wasn't the school district that put that playground in. That was the parents.
But the PTA,
yeah. And they like built a lot of it themselves. I guess it was awesome, but it was also awesome in a dangerous way.
Same as Pine Hills Elementary. It's
that was awesome. Although it was scary.
So I just wanted to have clarity.
Wood, right?
Yeah.
That was.
Are there any other issues that I have not identified here?
No.
Let's deal with that first, that you would like the Finance Committee to be looking at.
I never saw it come up where we all kind of agreed about suggesting doing something with the trees. The only thing we got feedback, I believe Sergio was saying that they were trying to hire some outside people to catch up. Was that?
To do a survey of the
I brought up the...
Isn't there a grant too?
No, the grant, well, he said he's trying to get a grant. The grant that we have, we never got money for. First of all, for studying the trees, and then for reforestation and the economy.
That was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
So, Joe, your point?
My point is just...
Should we be looking to add?
Yeah, I think it should have been, Well, I'm not sure, I happened to ask the question because I don't know how the hell I came across the legal pages, and there was a contract supposed to be opened up November 9th, and it said for maintenance and landscaping. And I said, what the hell is this? I said, we can't have DGS do landscaping? And I guess that's when he said, it was kind of a combination. He was saying we're going to try to use these people to take care of all the empty lots and see how it works out the first year, instead of hiring people for a whole year when you only need them seasonal. But I thought someone told me that they were going to try to take care of trees with that. Now that's just maintenance. That's not planting, which we need either, So I mean, somehow at least put it in our letter again and again, okay? Because the city's starting to, get kind of naked out there, really.
Ms. Clears.
I had a question about the soccer field improvement. Mm-hmm. I know it's in here. Mm-hmm. Is it what I heard from the city reps was that there's nothing they could do to make the improvements? Is that?
I was not at that meeting.
In the current location of where it is, there's an agreement for another 5 years where all improvements and everything is done through another organization. So the city is actually looking to find a different venue. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the reason why there's not any specific amount in the budget. And I think that the people, and Tom is very engaged with this, he's on the soccer thing, so he can address it. But it's my understanding that their main desire is to find a location at this stage, and because we don't have a location yet, it might be difficult to have like an exact amount for improvements. But it also might not be a terrible idea to just put a pitch for some amount in so that we can, at least they can start with something to do some improvements in the spring.
And when you say some amounts for another location, because if there's an agreement that the city can't make improvements to the current location.
Yeah, and it's also just it's not big enough. So Albany Soccer Club is expanding, and so they need a bigger space. And they also want to partner with lacrosse because they have opposite seasons. Mm-hmm. So lacrosse, the same thing, they're expanding. They need more field space than is there. So in addition to...
They brought up Bleecker. Have we talked to the commissioner about Bleecker?
They've been in contact with the commissioner about Bleecker and Beverwick. Okay. So those are two of the spaces. There's also the space...
Excuse me. Excuse me. I don't know how hard it is to say, this is our season. Can we use this field? I don't understand.
What they would like is they would like, how we have like They want it as a defined space, the same way our baseball fields are.
I get that, yeah.
You know.
Yes. And Bleecker used to be a defined space for 3 high schools, and it's no longer the case.
No,
Right.
There's no CBA, there's no Bishop McGinn, there's no Albany High.
Bleecker is
So I
actually
understand
there.
what the problem
That's
is.
where they would love to be,
What is
but
the
I
issue?
guess
Can
they
somebody-
need.
Do we need to call the commissioner? What's the issue?
So the issue is there is somebody that uses the baseball fields there. So without
the
the
season?
baseball fields there, it doesn't work. Like they need that field space too. So that's
They need that much field. I mean, football field. There's a
right.
baseball field. There's a
But they
football
need
field.
more space than just the football field.
All right.
They need the baseball. We can
Ms.
talk about this
Abliers
later.
wants to say something.
So
Was this her question?
I bring it up because in here we have soccer field improvements. Is the issue really improvements at this point?
No.
Should this continue to be in this document, or should it be reworded because it's more so about relocation versus
Finding safe
improvement?
fields or whatever.
But in the interim, if they
So-
don't get relocated, some days they couldn't even play on those fields
Yeah.
because the umps, the referees wouldn't let
you know
them.
what?
So soccer
So I think it's gotta
field
be a mix of both.
relocation.
The field right
Is
across the
really-
street was the same exact thing. That's what I don't understand. The rugby teams come in and fix their own field. They raise some money, whatever, okay? And when you talk about they're limited by something, 5 years, that city can't touch it till then, is that because of health reasons or,
No,
I mean, there's methane
it's
over there in
something-
Summerland.
And I'm not sure which, like, that was something that I don't know which organization has the actual, like,
Because that
there's a
soccer
lease.
team, they were willing to,
Yeah, they're willing to fundraise for it, but even with that, it's not enough field space for them. So they need more, even if it was fine and there wasn't cement chunks coming out of it.
Yes,
So
okay.
I saw somewhere, someone made a suggestion about University of Albany and potentially partnering up.
You can't, I've worked at the university, there's a problem ever since that thing in what was the guy's name in Pennsylvania? Universities don't want to get involved with kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But hold on, but Albany High plays their first game there this year, right?
That's the same game. Yeah.
They want-
well, you know what, if that's the case, Tom, if that's the
I
case,
kinda get
no,
it.
I know, but if that's the case, Beverwick is used more by SUNY people afterwards when they're in school than city people, so then the liability issue should be made clear to them. I mean, if that's,
Good point, Joe. That's a hell of a point.
All right. Any other, so I'm changing that in this document, soccer field relocation instead of improvements. Good point. And I appreciate the clarification because I wasn't able to be here then. Is there anybody who wants to take the lead in following through on that with Commissioner Jones about next steps? Okay.
Oh, actually,
Who?
Jack?
Jack.
Jack? Okay, great. Terrific. Keep us informed. Any other issues, direction? I just want to note that we, last couple of years, we have been passing the budget or acting on the budget by the time of our last regularly scheduled meeting in November, which would be 2 weeks from now. That is challenging, and I don't have any specific thoughts about that until we have our meeting on Wednesday. I will look to be addressing these issues with Mr. Wheeler, having the committee, and any other council members who understand, and hopefully Mr. Bennett. And I am also hoping to, if time permits, make a quick run through the planning department bond authorizations. Mr. Spencer put together that group of material for, I think it's 8 or 9 bonds. And I'd like to get some gut reaction on that. I think at least 5 or 6 of them are worthy of moving forward without much more discussion, except for the issue of how much we will bond.
Question on the planning department web, since that included some of the study money for the Skyway, is it within our authority, since technically they're writing the Skyway as park, is it within our authority to like rewrite that bond and have it really go to parks?
Anything that is pending before us can be amended pursuant to the normal process. Whether it then requires 10 votes at a full council meeting, and that 10 votes presumably would be veto-proof, but there's sometimes people change their mind before you know, if the mayor were to veto that. But I don't think there's anything that prohibits us from doing that, especially if it's in the same generic area of the ordinance and funding authorization.
Yeah, I think we should.
Mr. Conti is here. Mr. Ballerin, I don't know if I acknowledged you, and was there anybody else that came in? And I think this is, so Wednesday we will be having that meeting. Please, if anything comes up, please, I ask you to copy everybody at this point, because I don't want anybody to feel blindsided by issues. I like to share the information and make sure we cover what people think needs to be covered.
Judy, I appreciate so much, but I can't understand a lot. I'm trying to follow those emails over the weekend, this to that, one's getting in front of the other one. Huh? Am I the only one?
I understand. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Ms. Rizzo.
Just wanted to bring one question up that if you can address with the budget department. The real property taxes, when they increased to 58 million to 58,850,000, they increased it by 300,000. They took into consideration the $100,000 that we're not going to get from National Grid when we purchase the streetlights. I just wanted to make sure that they took that into consideration, because they're increasing the real property taxes by 300,000, but we're losing 100,000 from National Grid. So I just wanted to make sure they took that into consideration.
Then we'll be saving that much from paying National Grid?
Motion to adjourn.
So,
Second, Mr. O'Brien and Ms. Pleers, first and second, and all in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned.